So, Kevin, you're in a major transitionary period right now. You just closed your clinic in BC. How is that going? How is that landing? What are you experiencing right now? This just happened a few weeks ago. And can you share a little bit about what direction you're at now going in?
Yeah, it's been a process for sure. And I think sometimes, from the outside looking in, people may view, people like ourselves where we're guiding or leading and, hosting all kinds of events and things that we always have it together. And I can tell people that I don't always have it together for sure. And so human in the process of, a bit of grief and some of the sadness, kind of mixed feelings a little bit about transitioning out of the space I was in Vernon, BC. That was a 7 year cycle, actually to the month of when I had opened here and then transitioning out. And I do have a little one room office space that I transitioned into in Armstrong, BC here. And along with that transition, the downsizing some of these pieces of, oh, I miss my old space where we had other practitioners and had a little bit more space to move around physically, and then also that space held us really well. So just letting everything sort of land after that. I've been working in the new space a little bit, but a big part of that direction was to simplify. It's a big theme in my life personally right now and professionally. And what I'm wanting to do is free up more space to allow other things in. And I've been in the clinic doing one-to-one work for over 16 years now, and I've loved it. It's been so rewarding, challenging, tremendous, like amazing connections all the way around. And I want to take that into more community spaces and group work and speaking. And I've already been doing that for a number of years now, so it just seemed like it was time to make a shift and kind of set down some of the things I was holding in the way that I was to allow new elements to emerge. So yeah, just giving it room to breathe right now and getting used to driving somewhere else. Our nervous systems, our brains get wired of like, hey, when I get to the end of my road, turn right, don't turn left, because the muscle memory still wants to go that direction. So it's been kind of a cool process and seeing life in a new way, a new perspective. So I'm up for lots of unknowns right now, it seems like.
I so feel you on that. You even just mentioning that 7 year cycle. I've just like finished a 7 year cycle of when I first got sober 7 years ago. So really just started this healing journey, starting my whole life over. And I'm definitely starting a whole new 7 year cycle where I don't really know where it's taking me. Spirit has different plans than I had originally thought, what my ego desired. It's now going in a completely different direction. So I'm really just trying to surrender. And I myself getting really pulled into that community space. I really do feel like that is what is needed because once you experience that and you see the power of healing in community, you just feel a calling. And it's something that we really need to collectively move more towards. But yeah, with that, I find anytime we're ending like a 7 year cycle and starting a new one, I don't know if you experience this, but like often these old beliefs and old patterns like resurface that were like from the past 7 years, they all come up to clear. And that was what I was experiencing. It was like almost like these self-sabotaging thoughts where you almost want to pull yourself back and go back in time and keep yourself small and keep yourself safe. But there is that period of like taking the leap and going into that trust fall because sometimes we're not caught right away. And sometimes we actually can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we just have to surrender. We have to trust, which can be really, really challenging. And eventually it does turn out often better than we had even imagined. But there is that period of like falling through the void, is how I explain it. Do you relate to that at all?
This is actually something, maybe we can even unpack a little bit more, because the amount of conversations I've had lately with like clients of mine, patients of mine, and friends and myself, the amount of change happening right now is really rapid. And, one could say, oh, that's just sort of your unique, dynamic of your life right now and some of the people close to you. And, it's just a small number of people. But when I look at the macro and the micro, it seems really widespread. And you look at the first few months, even of this year, 2025, for a lot of the people that I've talked to, it feels like they've already lived like a year's worth of material in an accelerated way. And a lot of what's happening, and directly with patients that I've seen, the last month or two, huge changes changes in relationships, career, professional dynamics, moving, physically and otherwise. And yeah, new opportunities coming in or things happening quite unexpectedly, and lots of emotional dynamics in there. And you touched on it already that like, a lot can come up that maybe is not fully integrated, or there's another layer of healing available within ourselves. And we're gaining more access to that when you kind of shake things up a little bit in life. It does provide opportunity for it to come up. And so I think there's a few really key places here. And one of them, it is about the unknown, and it is about the discomfort of that, or how scary that can be. And what I've seen with patients over the years and in, group settings and retreats, the people that are willing to be open and curious, that it's like having the student mind or the beginner's mind. Like, what if I don't know my path exactly as it should unfold? What if there is something better, something different? But to do that, you also need to touch into the face of a lot of discomfort and a lot of unknown. And I feel like that's where so many people get stuck. And when we make a big shift, there's often the tests or the gatekeepers, internally and externally from even family and friends of, are you sure you want to do that? I don't know if that's a good idea. What about this? What about that? And a lot of people are orienting to what's comfortable and what they know is safe for them. Even if it's not healthy, it could still feel safe. So I feel like a lot of us have been riding that edge a little bit, where of course we want to still keep our nervous system functional as much as we can, but leaning into places that might be filled with uncertainty. And can we let go of the need for that regular rhythm every day? We know what's happening, and kind of break out of some of these older molds. Like that's what is kind of required.
Uh, Absolutely. And this is a theme that I've also been seeing come up just with a lot of, not even necessarily just my clients, but like friends and just people who I connect with online, is just what you said, just that rapid transformation in a very short period of time. And it can be very destabilizing to our system. Any tips or advice on how to navigate that? Because, it's so easy to say to just surrender, but if surrender doesn't feel safe to our body, possibly it wasn't safe to surrender before. Like what suggestion would you give to someone to help like navigate that, to help bring more stability and safety to their body, so that they can like trust the process?
I do feel that life is a team sport, and we'll probably, touch on this theme throughout this conversation because it's something we're both interested in, is don't do it alone.
Mm.
And I tell my patients all the time, health is a team sport for that reason. Like, don't just rely on me. Maybe seek out somebody like you, get some somatic work done, like have some other people in your corner, have some other skill sets, some other talents. Everybody's gifted in different ways. There's lots that I can offer with my skill sets. There's also lots that is not in my full like zone of genius. And so I often refer people to, hey, maybe you need to see that chiro, or you need to get some massage, or maybe see somebody else for some acupuncture or body work, or maybe you do need some really deep nervous system elements. And I often prescribe nature time. And it's kind of funny to say, right? Of prescribing nature time, but those are the key pieces that I see, is like get a good network of people. They don't have to be practitioners necessarily, but they can be. Especially if you've moved to a new location, or what I've seen the last few years is a lot of the friends dynamic and family dynamics have changed in a big way. Not everybody's aligned with their beliefs or their values, and some people start drifting. And if you're going through a lot of rapid change, not everybody maybe understands that, or feels good with you changing or stepping into a new career. That sometimes that is the first bridge, is hire somebody, a beautiful coach or somebody that can help guide you through that process if your network is suddenly shifted, or the people that you used to resonate with, maybe you don't anymore, and you're finding yourself a little bit in that lonely space. Reach out. There's a lot of different things. There's a lot of communities that are popping up, and leading events and different things can be part of that for us. But if you cultivate a good network of practitioners that you can develop a good solid relationship with, that that you can call, or you can book an appointment to help you with different elements that are coming up, it will make a big difference. Team sports and everything else, like it's not one person that wins the cup or the game or whatever. It's like all of those different roles are really vital. So I have this for myself. I have practitioners that I reach out to. I've got really good friends that I'm so grateful for that I have put time and energy and focus into cultivating those safe spaces, those places that are, less judgmental, where they can allow me to go through changes, they can allow me to be messy, and I can hold that for them as well. And we can share wins that they will love you through the process anyway. And I know that can be challenging to find, but that is available. And so I would say, keep finding your people. And so just in the external sort of dynamics, I feel like those are really key. And then if I go back to nature, the simple things, and again, this is the theme I'm in my life. When there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of change, we do need to simplify, or at least that's my view on it now, because the amount of stimulus coming in is really high. And got my haircut with my barber buddy and Vernon the other day, and we were chatting about this topic a little bit, and he said, "Don't quote me on the stats." So I'll say that, don't quote me here, but some of the studies, something like compared to 1940 until now, the amount of data input and information that we're accessing and sort of being bombarded with in some ways compared to back then is cumulatively like 1,000 times more on an annual basis. And I don't know if that's actually the
Love
number.
that.
Maybe it's 500 times or 10,000. Like, it doesn't really matter. The point is, there's so much coming in. So, how does our body and our nervous system possibly ground or integrate that level of data? And I find you got to simplify your life and start looking at what's essential here and what do I need to support myself when there's, the accumulative nature of just way too many, poles and 50 directions in your life. And I think it's like the ancient Chinese proverb of he who tries to catch two rabbits catches none.
Mm.
And I remind myself of that in my own life of where's my focus right now? And is it in alignment with what I'm trying to create? Or if I'm working on something deep within that I'm working on healing, what is actually going to be a beautiful space to do that? And what container do I need for myself to put myself in a position of success or more likely success? And I keep coming around to this again and again. Simplify. Set down some of the things that are extra, that are not needed. Learn to say no and get your feet on the earth, like barefoot more often. Be in nature, be in the forest, be by the trees. There's ancient wisdom there, and I find it really helps connect us to our ancient wisdom that's inside. There's such this sort of rapid technological advancements and like even health and wellness, the biohacking community. And, I'm not saying it's good or bad necessarily, but there's a lot. And you got the red light masks, the red light helmets, the body suits, the infrared sheets and grounding mats and millions of other electronics and Oura rings and everything else. And some of that stuff I find really cool and really beneficial. But I'm also being drawn back more to the old school things, the ancient things, and simple. And a lot of them are free. Get with a big tree in the forest and just sit there. Doesn't cost you anything, and there's never been a time I've done that I haven't felt better for doing so. It works every time.
Mm. I love that. The theme for me that really came through this year that I've been focusing on is being more intentional and devotional, which really correlates with simplicity, like simplifying a lot of things and taking a lot of things away and just being more intentional when I do things. And I was just having this conversation with a client the other day, where his life is already stressed. Like he's already stressed to the max. He's working extremely long hours and he was trying to fit in like all the workouts, all the meditations, like adding in all these extra things. And I'm like, if we're already stressed, like we don't need to add in more. Like what can we take away and just start being more intentional with these things when we do add them in? And that just like pivoted and changed everything for him, right? Like sometimes it is actually taking these things away and doing less. And even a practice for myself that I'm really starting to implement now that the weather is getting a lot better is I'm going to find a spot in nature, do my sit spot meditation for 90 days straight. So it's you find a spot in nature that's ideally close to your home. So they say like around, like within like 10 minute, like a 10-minute walk, maybe a 5-minute drive. And you go there every single day and you sit in this spot and you meditate and you really cultivate a relationship with nature. And so many people have shared that they have had such profound experiences with nature or like with animals, like encounters with animals from doing this consistently. And even just doing like a little like ritual or building an altar in nature is what I'm really feeling called to do. Integrating, like cultivating ceremonial and ritual practices in everyday life. Because one thing that I really find, I'm not sure if you've experienced this or heard this yourself, for many people who experience these events that we host or retreats, they go to this, they have these profound experiences. Like it's unbelievable. It can't not be when you're in that energy and that space with like all these high vibrational people and you're healing together and you're practicing these different rituals, then you go back to your everyday life and it's like the expansion contraction. So it's like not only have you shifted vibrationally, like from that experience, and then you have to go through this recalibration process and like really trying to, everything kind of feels like out of alignment when you return back to your ordinary life, but also not feeling like feeling like they have to have those experiences to be able to cultivate that feeling, which you don't. Like you can integrate ceremony into everyday life. It's just being very intentional with it. Simplifying things is a big way to do that, right? Like taking away all the unnecessary stuff, like you had just said, and treating everything like it's a ceremony because life is a ceremony. But even I was sharing with my clients because they're like, well, there isn't really anything in my city or in my province, like any spiritual practices or retreats or anything that I can go to or any community that I can connect with that is like very like-minded in this space. And you really do have to look for it because there is. Like I guarantee that you will find it when you start to look for it. And just recently, I started really committing to going to sweats, which I'm so fortunate because we have so many in Manitoba. And like, what a privilege and what an honor to be able to go to those and to learn from an Indigenous elder. And we have them everywhere. So there's things like this where you just have to look for them. Like they're everywhere. But once you open your eyes to them and you open up to those possibilities of them, synchronicity will guide you and they will show up. So there are ways that we can implement those in everyday life. So has that been something that you have found that has come up for people that you work with after having these experiences at these events or retreats?
Integration is, I think the key word there. And probably something that is getting talked about more now, just because we're learning more. We're learning more about the psyche, we're learning more about our nervous systems, and that you can go seek out peak experiences anywhere in lots of different, layers of availability there. But it doesn't necessarily lead to meaningful change. And maybe for some, yes, and for some, no, they kind of go right back to the patterning of what they had previously. And sometimes you'd wonder, like, how's that possible? How could that experience then it's like all the air gets let out of it over the next few weeks or months and nothing really happens. And I would say a couple things about that. Number one, we do need repetition. Not everything's going to shift overnight. Sometimes it does for some people if they were in that space of being ready in some way, like they had an awakening experience or they had like a big enough activation or initiation that they were able to integrate on some level, and then it becomes embodied and they do start making different decisions immediately after that, which is really tremendous. Like that can happen. And for other people, it does need to be more the regular day-to-day experience. And what I've found is it's the little things that even when you wake up in the morning, what's the way that you feel? And can we shift that? Like the first thing that you do when you open your eyes, usually people will tell like they might have a feeling of anxiety or excitement or peace or unhappiness, anger, whatever that is. And those are the places I like to get really curious is what are those things? Because you're with yourself all day long, ideally. And there's like 1,000 opportunities every day to make different choices with every element of life. And so sometimes I think and I've done this, that I'm looking for the things outside of myself to create a big shift or change for me. And in the past, I would ask everybody what their opinions were of what I should or shouldn't do. And I never really checked in with myself at a deep level. And then I got a lot of experiences from that, but they didn't necessarily land or resonate for me because I wasn't choosing that. I was outsourcing my own wisdom. I was outsourcing my own innate guidance and intelligence. And I really had to start owning that. And I had enough of experiences realizing that we're all human how could anybody else possibly know deep down what I'm sensing and feeling right now? They might have an idea, and just for somebody else, I won't know their true experience of what they're having happen inside. I can listen, I can provide guidance, but I've shifted a lot in my career over the years to just asking more questions to help people find that answer for themselves. Because if I told them the answer, I'm still human. I may have a subconscious agenda that I'm not even aware of, or I might have my own bias and opinions based on my own life experiences that may or may not be the best advice for them. And the more I come into that simplicity, the more I get adept at listening and being present and having like divine neutrality as much as possible, I can reflect much more clearly and help guide them in a way that they get to discover what is true for them. And to me, that's more lasting from an integrative point of view because I'm not giving them the answer. They need to find it for themselves. But we can really help that. And that is, I think, what lands in a much more long-standing impact, whether it's a session or retreat or like a big group experience, is to provide a container in a way where people can find that for themselves. And then they're insourcing instead of outsourcing. And those are the people that I see make profound changes. And 3 months later, a year later, ask, how's it going? And they have a lot to share. And you can tell by looking them in the eyes, the color in their complexion and that aliveness of spirit that's there. And you know they've changed things. And they took all that energy and transformed it in a beautiful way. So yeah, the insourcing is a big key.
Absolutely. I definitely want to speak to your events that you host. So is this the fourth New Human event that you'll be hosting?
Yeah, October coming up, 2025. This will be, yeah, number 4.
Amazing. I'm so excited and looking forward to your announcement of who's going to be there as
Yeah.
speakers. Definitely looking forward to hearing that. Last time you had Zach Bush and is it Charles Eisenstein? Is
Yeah,
that
Charles
right?
Eisenstein. Yeah. Yeah.
And what was that like? Like, how did that unfold?
Yeah, they first of all, they were both absolutely tremendous. And I had dear friends of mine, Mike and Courtney there. They work with relationships and coaching of all kinds too. And my friend Andrea, who led a beautiful segment on The Voice, and we had some singing with my friend Zoe. And yeah, there's all these really beautiful elements that I'm often wanting to create and curate to give people the greatest potential to find those parts of themselves, just like we're talking about, that can activate gifts and create big transformational changes, but not necessarily from every peak experience. But we really dove in and did some deep work in like dyads and triads and things like that, where we are actually working with the root source material, that we weren't just talking about it, we were living it and sharing it authentically and vulnerably. And it was, yeah, it was tremendously powerful. And that was my experience. And I got a lot of reflections from people there, and you could just watch the space and feel it. It was really beautiful to be a part of. And the way I build events and retreats is I do ask for a lot of inner guidance and kind of trust the intuition that comes up, especially at this phase where I'm not in my head as much as what I used to be. And so, been a big fan of Dr. Zach for a long time, and a lot of the ideas and philosophies in medicine I've been practicing myself and seeing play out in the clinic over all those years. And I think I was maybe walking in the forest. I can't remember if maybe I was meditating or outside, but that's usually where a lot of things drop in for me, just some solo time. And I had led a bunch of other retreats with like 10, 15, 20 people and more adventures and things in between. And I started having these visions come through of doing a bigger event and, even just like a one day. And part of my curiosity with that was, I wonder if I could get somebody for a whole day instead of an hour or two in clinic, what would be possible with that? And what if we had a bunch of people together that we were there together for the whole day? And what if we set some things up to be able to, maybe unravel some pieces that were stuck for all of them at the same time? What would happen? And so I ended up doing an event called Yankstis. This is 3 years ago now. And it was one day, it was like 100 people. It was on a farm in a pole barn open to the elements. And it was beautiful. It worked really well. And I saw a lot of shifts and transformations. And I liked it. I got to, have a lot of impact in one day. So the effectiveness and the efficiency really spoke to me, that we could all heal a bunch of things together in one day, and that would make a big impact in the community, and it would be more accessible too.
Hmm.
And so I ended up doing another one after that a few months later called the Equinox Emergence. And again, we had like 100, 125 people there. And then after that, I was kind of feeling into what's next. And I thought, what if we had 2 days? And what if we brought in more people and other speakers and it wasn't just me? What would that look like? And I started having these visions. And Zach was a part of that early vision. And I'd been a fan of Charles Eisenstein for years as well, read a lot of his books, really love how he articulates things and different philosophies that he has. And he's such a great speaker. And Mark Rose was a part of that early vision as well. And that was the first new human. Mark Rose came and spoke at our first one in 2023. And that was an amazing experience. He's an amazing man, and now we're friends, and it's been a cool journey. And as I've been following along, following the inner vision, more connections would start happening. And what I would say that hopefully is going to land this for people that are listening, that sometimes people ask me, how do you manifest these things? Like, is this just a horseshoe or like you're getting lucky? And it's like, I don't know entirely, but I can tell you what my process is. One of them is trusting the visions that I get. And when I feel that deep yes or that deep resonance, I will start orienting in that direction. And, some people don't know this, but I think I filled out Dr. Zach's speaker form like 10 times over, a period of 2 or 3 years at least. And it was not until a few years of other things connecting and landing that we actually got to have a conversation. And then he was able to say yes to come in and be a speaker. So when I retraced my steps, it was getting a vision, creating a clear space for myself to be able to receive and listen, like in the forest, just by myself, getting quiet, and then trusting these things that I'd be shown in my mind or my heart would bring forward. And then I would start taking steps or actions without knowing how it was going to happen, but just trusting I'm going to follow this direction. We'll see what happens. So I'd always find when I would take a step, the universe would meet me. And sometimes I would need to take 3, 4, 5, or 8 or 10 steps before it felt like I would get met, but I always would. And sometimes I'd need to hold that vision, for a year, 2, 3, 4 years. And I think in society we can become impatient. I know I have at times, but a lot of the things that I've held the vision on, it just, if I stick with it and I'm willing to take those risks or those leaps into the unknown, like do a big event that there's no guarantee of success. You don't know if people are going to come, but you're going to invest a lot of your own money that maybe you don't even have, just to really deeply trust that vision. So I would say that was something that started unlocking things for me more, was just trusting that inner guidance, even if it looked a bit crazy, even if it looked a bit risky, or how's that going to work? Or do you know that's going to work or not? And I didn't, but I could feel that it was a direction I needed to go in anyway. And it's hard to kind of put it in words. And then after a while, things start showing up and people say yes that you maybe don't expect, but I could feel that direction and just sticking with it. And then doing another one and just showing up consistently. And it seems like, yeah, the universe will meet you halfway, but you're going to have to take the first step, is what my experience has been. It may not just come and find you, and land right in your lap without you really taking any action. So it seems like there's a bit of a balance. It's a bit of, back and forth, that you got to take some steps. And even if you don't see the action externally happening, if you feel guided and pulled, then keep going. Don't give up. And I find that's where there's a big test. And I definitely felt some tests along the way, almost giving up, almost quitting, a lot of self doubt. And I find that's actually where that magic sweet spot is. That if you can move through that and stay with it, suddenly doors open and you're like in awe of what just happened then. So thanks for that question and my long-winded answer.
So what you're saying is you get the vision and you would have, did you feel like a clear knowing like this was going to happen? Like it wasn't just a desire, it was almost like a knowing in your body that you felt?
Yeah, I would say it felt that way to me. And I only know my own experience in, the visions that I get shown, or I don't even know where they come from sometimes. I can't even say it's like my idea. But in the way I'm seeing it more now is there's a lot of ideas in the general collective field, and you can reach into that big, bubble of awareness, and some of them will drop in spontaneously, I think, and others may, you maybe can pull them in. And try them on a little bit, and different ideas I get, I can kind of tell like, oh, maybe that's down the road, but I don't feel like a giant pull in that direction, or it's not really lighting me up, or it's not lighting up my energy. Or maybe it does a little bit and it grows over time. I can tell I should actually keep following that up. And, in terms of, following up with speakers, there's somebody I'd invited in the past that wasn't able to come, but I still felt resonance there. And I recently reached out to them again because I felt it. Oh, I wonder if they can make it to this. Does that still feel good, or has it shifted for me, or has it shifted for them? And I sent a message, and we're going to have a meeting here shortly of, yeah, I still feel like that is going to be a really beautiful addition that could bring a lot of value into the space of the New Human event. But there has been other times I've had ideas, and then, maybe it passes, and I'll like put it back in the river of life, or put it back in the stream, and let it go, and just kind of trust that, oh yeah, no, that doesn't feel like the right direction anymore, and to not cling to them too much, or not hold on to it too tightly. And then when it drops in and it's something that brings my energy forward, I can tell there's a difference there. There's a different feeling inside. Like it doesn't go away, and it'll be there the next day and the next day, and then I know it's like, oh, this has some staying power. What is that about? And even if it doesn't lead to the outcome that I'm anticipating or wanting, it does lead to something though.
Mm. I love that. And I resonate with that so much. I've had similar experiences, not to the degree that you have, but definitely have had similar experiences where I get strong knowings that something is going to happen. And then it does. And my brother is like blown away because there's been incidences in my life where even a podcast platform, like a partnership that I was in, that I stated to my brother that I was going to be on like this podcast platform. Um, and it was going to lead, I could already see what it was going to lead to. And it happened pretty instantaneously, which was pretty wild. And these things happen often, very similar, where it's like I have that vision, I have just a knowing, like just a knowing, but there isn't an attachment. Like it's not like this feeling of it needs to happen.
Hmm.
It's just a knowing, and then I let it go. But what I have found, and there's this really powerful, potent exercise that I've actually done in retreats um, with a lot of people, and I've done this in my online community as well, is when we have a vision of our future. So, say you write down on a piece of paper, like the future that you want, say 5 years from now. So, you get full detailed, like on what that looks like, what that feels like. And then what I'll get them to do is I'll get them to start stepping towards it and noticing what's arising in their body, and I'll say, okay, now that's 4 years away. Now that's 3 years away. Now that's 2 years away. Now that's 1 year away. Like, what does that feel like in your body? Is there resistance? Because it should feel natural. When it feels natural, that's when we like manifest things pretty quicker. But when it feels unnatural and like we feel like too excited, it's too overwhelming for our system, then we're not like in a vibrational resonance with that quite yet. And I even experienced that when I did have something kind of fall into my lap in the summertime where it was a complete dream come true. But it felt so overwhelming for my system. Like I didn't feel worthy of it quite yet. And so there was a lag before that all came together. So I experienced it. The universe was like, this is a taste of what you're about to receive, but you have to get into like vibrational alignment with this. And so I went through a period of all of my fears and all of my insecurities, everything coming up, wanting to self-sabotage. It was bizarre. Like it was like all my unworthiness wounds were surfacing. And I realized, okay, I need to clear these before this is actually going to come in. And so sure enough, I did that inner work. I focused on that over several months. And now that's coming back into my life. Like it's circling back around. Um, it's but the difference is now is it actually feels natural. Like I don't feel this like overwhelming excitement. It's just who I am because I've been able to recalibrate and like stabilize that energy.
Yeah, you've
So
become that frequency, and
absolutely.
that's who you are now, which is, yeah, like we can do these things as humans. and and if
So
something's
cool.
not a vibrational match, this is a question I've sat with for myself is, when I've reached out to, different speakers or different visions, if it hasn't happened, or in some cases where it took a few years before it did, the way I saw it back then was, oh, this is not the most perfect timing for this. And I got to trust that and not fight it and still take the steps to keep orienting in whatever direction I feel inspired by. And what are the layers of work that I get to do within myself to become a vibrational match to, that event happening where, especially at the New Human, like who do I need to be to step onto stage to deliver the most value that I can at that point in time. And it's always so interesting the things that'll come up for me with each event. It's not a it's not a small thing that the events will challenge me greatly in the months leading up to it because it's almost like I feel the event requires this version of me. And so anything that is not in alignment or things that are holding me back, self-sabotage, doubt, whatever that might be, that might prevent me from delivering the highest level of experience of value and impact at that event, then the months leading up to it, all that stuff will surface. And then I get to work on it and I get support and I do somatic sessions or whatever it needs to be to work with all those layers. And then by the time I get to the event, I can feel like, oh, this is who I am now. And it's kind of funny. Then I feel like, okay, everybody, I've done my work over the last bunch of months to prepare for this, to hold the energy in a way that would land in the most beautiful way. And now it's all your turn. So let's get to business. Let's get down to work. And then people go through a lot of shifts. But I feel like sometimes I'm being really stretched and pulled and squeezed through different layers of my own material to prepare me to lead properly. And, for anybody that is in a position of leadership in any capacity, I have a huge amount of respect for that because leadership is not to be taken lightly. We don't want to hold it with too much tension, but there's a lot that can come through with that. And there's a lot of that, like, powerful responsibility to, become somebody that can lead in a clear way, in a healthy way. And I'm also very human, and there's things I make mistakes on or wish I could go back and change or do better. But then I see, okay, let's address that for the next one and let's see where we can make improvements because we also don't need to be perfect. And if we wait until everything feels 100% healed or that we're done with a particular part of our own story or material, we're going to be waiting a lifetime. And so you don't have to be perfect to be of service to others, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Totally. And we're never fully healed.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want to be intentional and moving in that direction, be committed and devoted to our own inner work, but we're always going to be going through stuff. People are going to hurt us. We're going to experience trauma throughout our lives, and sometimes we think we've healed something, but it resurfaces again later on because we're able to approach it with a different level of consciousness every single time it circles back around. And I'm really curious. One thing that I feel from you, I don't know you well, but one thing I really feel is a very safe energy. And that's one thing I've heard from many people who do know you well and have experienced sessions with you is the safety that they feel in your presence, which is the foundation of what we need to heal. And have you found it like different creating that safety in such a large group environment, like at an event, creating safety like that in a space of that capacity compared to one-on-one sessions? Like, what is that like? What is the difference like there?
Yeah, that's a great. Well, first of all, yeah, thank you. And thanks to all the people that have allowed me to hold space for them over many years and clinical hours and, retreats and big events. And it's something that I hold in a really sacred way. And maybe that's part of it is understanding like, wow, this is such an honor and a privilege to be able to be in a position to hold space. And again, when I kind of look back over the years, that it's been not an overnight thing, that 16 years of clinical practice, and I've spent a lot of years in school prior to that, and then all of life's experiences bring us something. They all count. All the jobs that I had, all the the ups and the downs, relationships and everything else, like we get to bring all that forward. How we put that work together and how we connect all these dots within our own story, I think is what brings that to the forefront more. So when I think of thousands and thousands of one-to-one visits over, the years I've been in practice, that has really helped build a beautiful foundation. And there's probably a lot of the time earlier in my career where maybe I wasn't holding as much safety as I could, not unintentionally, like I was showing up to help and be of service, but my capacity was what it was at the time. But I was dedicated to doing more courses, to doing training, to reading, to listening, and taking time with people and hearing what they had to share. And so I think that's maybe been one of the biggest skills is listening, not just to what somebody's saying, but listening to their energy and tracking how they're feeling, even in a one-to-one setting or in a bigger setting, is looking at the overall dynamic field of the event. And to fill in those gaps there, thousands of office visits, and then I started doing retreats with, yeah, like 10 people. And I remember that gap of, oh, I've worked with one-to-one people or families, maybe a few people be in one visit together, some kids, a wife, a husband, whatever, and then a retreat setting for several days with 10 people. And it stretched me a little bit, and I could feel the discomfort, but I could feel that I was ready for it at the time, and some growth happened along the way. And then the next one we did, I think there was, maybe 13 or 14 people, and then doing a handful of those numbers in a setting for, 2.5, 3 days, and then having 20 people show up for 5 days, and then, really just taking time and not, maybe overstepping too much with where I was at, and then learning and filling those shoes and then pushing it a bit more. And so when I made the jump from 20 people to 100, I shaved down the 3 days to like 1 day for that. And I also wanted to test it out is like, can I hold this really well? Do I have the capacity for this? And then I tested it out, and it felt good and it stretched me, but it's like it gave me another gear in my system of how to hold for a bigger group. And it is different than one to one, but I think the underlying dynamics are similar, that I have to make sure I'm as aligned and grounded as possible. And that it's like working out. You wouldn't give somebody 100-pound weights on their first workout if they haven't been to the gym. You'd start off with a 5 pound. And that's kind of how I've seen it over the years of doing retreats and events, that it's like organic growth. And each new layer pushes me a bit more, but I have that foundation now that's there. And again, there's lots of room for improvement. I'm always looking at how can I, be more effective, or yeah, create more safety. And then what I started doing with the bigger events is inviting more people in to help hold that energy container with me. So designated space holders is something that we do have at the New Human, and their job, their role is to hold the energy and help create safety for the entire group for the whole event. Because when you're dealing with that much depth and vulnerability and healing, you need a really solid container so that that can actually happen. Otherwise, it won't happen. And my friend Courtney, and you spoke to it earlier, she'd always say in some of the retreats we did together, if there's enough safety in the field, then healing will happen. And if there's not, then that amount of healing is quite limited. And so the more we can hold that together, create an environment that is conducive to, the healing process where people can actually sink into their body and feel that safety at a visceral level, all kinds of things start transforming. So yeah, it's been something I want to keep learning about, and quite a journey up until now, and I'm sure it's going to continue.
Well, one thing I love about like bringing people together in a community to heal is that often others will help them carry the pain. So when someone's moving through something and maybe they feel stuck or they feel stagnant, it's actually pretty powerful how you'll see someone else actually help them clear it. And I've experienced that in ceremonial settings, which was unbelievable. Like it was a mind-blowing experience. It was when I was in Costa Rica last, and we were all in ceremony, and one of the girls was moving through some really heavy childhood trauma, and there was a lot of practitioners around her supporting her through it. And I guess during her session, she felt called to scream, but she couldn't let anything out. And I'm lying there, and out of nowhere, I just felt the call to scream. I didn't know why, but I don't question these things. If I feel called to scream, I just let it move through me. And so I let out a blood curdling scream. And afterwards, she came up to me, and I guess they were saying to her, let her screams be your screams. And she came up to me and she said, you were screaming for me. Like I felt like I needed to scream and I couldn't let it out. And then all of a sudden you started screaming.
Wow.
It's so powerful, like how connected we are when we come into like a group like that, a community like that,
Yeah.
how much we can support each other, helping each other support moving that energy through our bodies. We don't have to carry it all on our own.
Yeah, we absolutely don't. This is the power of community, especially when it's in, the right frequency or the right dynamics or have all come together, the right ingredients, then anything is possible in those spaces because some things are too big for one person to hold. And I think this speaks back to a lot of our roots. If you go back far enough, most, I think, cultures, ancient cultures especially, they heal in community all the time. Like that wasn't unusual. What's become unusual, I think, in our society is that there's so much isolation where we're sort of expected to heal in secret, in quiet, go to your room kind of vibe until you're sorted out, and then you can come out and suddenly you're better, but you're not actually because any of those dynamics often need a witness or, you need to be held in a certain way energetically, emotionally, whatever it might be, and even physically sometimes being held or hugged properly with safety allows the nervous system to transform and alchemize some of these things that previously have been stuck in the body. And so in that group setting, there's a lot of amplification of energy. And then things that maybe you can't access on your own, you suddenly gain access to because then we create a shared nervous system that suddenly so much more can move. And I think individual healing is just as powerful and just as valid. But in my experiences of both attending and leading retreats, there's an extra layer of accessibility that can be there. And then suddenly those things that have been blocked for 10 years or 20 or 30 years, they can open and shift and have some light pour in, to those places. And I have had patients say this, like one weekend with some of our events, created a shift that was worth, 10 years of counseling or some of the things that they were working on. And it's like, well, yeah, there's 500 people there working in a similar direction with space holders. And we build the energy and build the containers for these events for months and months ahead of time so that people do feel really protected and grounded and landed, even though there's deep work going on. It changes everything. It changes what's possible.
Incredible. And like you were saying, like trauma, the event itself is actually not traumatizing. Trauma is what happens within us without the presence of an empathetic witness. And trauma happens in isolation. So we don't heal in isolation. We heal in community. Yes, we can become aware of a lot of our patterns. And I should say that I wouldn't say that we don't do any healing in isolation because part of my healing process and becoming more individuated was spending time in solitude and reconnecting back to myself. So it's coming back into relationship with ourselves for sure. But reconnecting with others and healing in relationship is such an important piece because there are certain things that we actually can't heal without other people. Like
Yeah.
they're mirrors. They're mirrors to us, and we need those containers to be able to really dive deep and to be able to come back into relationship with ourselves, the environment, and others. And so, can you share a little bit about, I guess, the upcoming event? How can people find more information about it? When are you going to actually announce the speakers? Can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think also some of the comments from many of the attendees at the events we've been doing, they feel a sense of home and they feel a sense of belonging. And I would say that's not a want or a desire, like that's a need of being human. Is we need each other. We want to feel connected at a deep level because it's built into our soul blueprint. And I do think we came here to be relational. And there's a time and a space for solitude. And I definitely am one of those people. I need my time away. And then I love being in groups and having these big shifts happen. So from an event point of view, that I think that's something that we do a bit uniquely or is a little bit special, that there's a different felt sense of belonging and connection because it's at a deep level and it's kind of more grassroots. It's really authentic. We're all human there. I'm human as much as everybody else. And anybody that's been on stage at our event speaking, some of my requirements are that they're incredibly heart-centered as a leader. And that is something I feel that you can't fake. Everybody can tune into that in a room. And so people that are aligned and live the most embodied version of themselves, whatever that might be, and that it's true and it's authentic. And that's an edge that I'm always bumping up against within myself because I have gaps in my system too, where I want to show up this way, but I haven't quite close that gap, but I'm getting close, or there's progress there. And then I see sometimes where I do, create a rupture, or there needs to be some repair, and maybe I wasn't as safe as what I wanted. Not because that was my intention, just I have my own patterns, I have my own stuff that I'm working on too. But as I bring more light to that, and as I have beautiful people in my life that can help point a light or call me out or hold space for that healing to happen, then I am able to step into higher levels of service. And so when we show up at the event, there's a lot of layers that are already prepared and ready to receive people. So this next event, October 3rd to 5th, 2025. I'm not sure when this podcast is going to be released, but early May is when we're going to release tickets, and we'll be doing a proper launch and making announcements on who's going to be there and where it's going to be. It's going to be in the North Okanagan still, but we've outgrown our last venue. And yeah, we haven't released yet where it's going to be, but it's going to be more in nature, and it's going to be a new experience. And we love changing things up anyway. We don't really do things the same for each event, which I'm grateful to my team, the beautiful people that helped me. Are like, hey, we just got this dialed in, and now you're gonna change it. And like, yeah, of course, like we gotta do it different. So everybody's always growing and expanding in the support of the event, which I'm also really grateful for. The community here has been tremendous. And so yeah, ticket sales will go on in May, and a lot of announcements, and I'll be talking about it a bit more over the coming month leading up to that. And yeah, can't wait to share more. But it's going to be 2.5 days again. We're going to start on Friday the 3rd after lunch, and then we kind of go into the early evening, and then full day Saturday, full day Sunday. And so there'll be deep teaching, there'll be deep processes, because, like I said earlier, we really love embodying and getting things into the body. Because my intention as well is that when people leave, they are different and they are changed in the most beautiful way possible, but that it sustains that longevity through their life. It's not just kind of a flash in the pan, had a great time, had some fun. And what I've seen now that we've done a few over the last couple of years, the amount of connections and friendships and coworkers and people that are now doing podcasts together or traveling together or doing events together. And I get these messages all the time, which really fills my heart with like so much joy. Connection and community is one of the driving forces of why I want to create these things, in part from my own healing process of times in life where I felt so alone, where I felt that deep loneliness, or didn't feel like I belonged, or didn't feel like I really fit anywhere. And I know there's a lot of people that still feel that way or have felt that a lot. And so this is kind of a unique space. It's a unique group of people that get called to this of, a lot of us are healing, we're doing the deep work, we're showing up in community, we're connecting, we care about the planet, we care about, each other in community, and healing whatever's there for ourselves. And so that's what we're going to be doing on a few different levels. And we usually have like sound baths and a bit of breath work mixed in there, but the processes can be quite profound and lasting. And yeah, it's exciting. It lights up my heart for sure to be moving in this direction again.
Super exciting. I'm really hoping to be there. I haven't been able to attend an event yet. So fingers crossed I will be at this one for sure, because I've experienced the power of being in community like that, and just how much it has accelerated my own growth and my own healing. And for anyone who feels intimidated, just know like that is normal. Going to these events for the first time, if you haven't been to one, I definitely felt like super nervous and intimidated, like first putting myself into containers like that. And I used to have really bad social anxiety, and that's how we heal it. Like we slowly start to show ourselves that it is safe. And it's a perfect place to do it because it's such a beautiful, incredible community of like-minded people. And I really love how you even just shared that you're not perfect and you're still healing. Like as leaders, as healers, we're still doing our work too. And we never want to create that gap between client and practitioner. Like we're human too, and we're here to hold space for you. And just know that if you do have some nerves, that's completely normal and that's okay. And allow them to be there. And
Hmm.
all you have to do is just show up, allow those parts to be there, and slowly they start to dissipate.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there'll be something there for everybody. And that's part of the intention too, is that all the things that we build in terms of the experience, the people, the speakers, the space, my support staff, everybody that's helping out, is that everybody will be able to take something away from that. And we can meet them where they're at, whether you're a seasoned, advanced, healer extraordinaire, there'll be something there for you too, because there is a lot of practitioners that show up to these events and they often have some pretty big transformation. Because I also feel like the healers, the practitioners, the doctors, nurses, all of it, practitioners like yourself, we need healing and space held for us as well, especially people that are holding space and supporting their communities and guides and leaders. Where do they go? What's happening for them? And so, yeah, I think there's we take a lot of pride in trying to do our best at holding a high level of container for people that are very gifted already. They're already on their path, that a place that they can kind of lean into and sink into and be held in a way that maybe they haven't before, even in a bigger group setting. And if you're one of the people that has difficulty with groups or it's a lot of stimulus, you can always step outside and get some fresh air, get your feet on the ground. We've got support staff there too. And there is times I hear this from people just recently, actually, kind of the lone wolf a little bit. They're not always in groups, but they felt called to be there, and maybe is feeling a lot and they hang out at the back. And then suddenly there's another person back there that's kind of like that too. And then they become friends because they understand what's going on of like, oh, this is a lot for you too. And now they're friends and now they chat. And this was just shared with me the other day. And I was like, that's beautiful. You're still in the room, but you're going to find your people there too. And it can be life changing. Like I started the conversation with, like, life is a team sport. The people you hang around with matter, the frequency matters. And if you're finding a bit yourself, isolated, or that loneliness is there, sometimes you just got to be in the room and magic starts happening and you may find a lot of resonance there. So I'm excited to keep creating spaces where this happens. And yeah, just it's satisfying to no end to be on stage or be on the side and watch people interacting, and the amount of hugs and connections and smiles and tears at times. It's profoundly beautiful. It's just part of the human experience. So yeah, that's why it's called the new human.
Love it. Love it. And so without your clinic, how can people work with you? Do you have courses available? Like what else, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so drkevinpreston.com is still our site that we're using. I am building courses. I've got a free course coming out soon. There's a few things up on the site already as resources and, meditations and things. I do a word of the year process. Every year it's free. People can go on and find their word of the year, and there's a guided meditation as part of that. It's different every year. So, yeah, there's a bunch of free resources up there already. And then the other website is newhumanevents.com. That's where you can find out about the events that we're speaking about here. And, when ticket sales go live, it'll be there. And then I am on Instagram a bit and kind of, weave my time in and out of social media a little bit, but I'm doing my best to, share what's happening and informing people what we're up to. And that's drkevinpreston.com, or sorry, just Dr. Kevin. Dr. Kevin Preston is the Instagram. And yeah, you'll be able to access all the things that we're up to there. And then I have a podcast as well that I would love to have you on as well. And it's called The New Human Experience. And, we do much more than talking about events. And, I had an episode with Zach on there and Charles Eisenstein and Rainier Wild and other really cool humans doing cool work in the world that have to do with healing and connection and community, and more to come. And yeah, I'm excited about all the things to unfold. And I do also 1 year, well, sometimes I'll change it or modify it, but I do deep dive containers with more kind of high impact leaders that are willing to do that next level of work, especially ones that are supporting a lot of people, or they're here with their mission of making the world a better place. I love working with people in that world. And then I still am working in the clinic a little bit, doing some of the testing, but we have a program called the Vitality Collective that I'm running right now, another cohort online. And that's where we meet every week online. We do a lot of detox work. People get gear and remedies from me to really guide that process. And a lot of transformation happens in that, but there's also a sense of community involved. So yeah, it feels like I got a few things on the go that I'm, really lit up by, and so grateful for that.
A few things for sure. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I'll share all that in the show notes for everyone as well. So thank you so much for being here. It's was such a great conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, very honored to be here with you. And thanks, everybody.